Yahoo. Turns out they have been fighting against the United States government over crazy fines. $250,000 a day is
per day.
Per day.
For
per day.
refusing to share information.
So the government had threatened to fine them $250,000 a day all the way back in 2008 if Yahoo failed to comply with a broad demand to hand over user communications. I presume that means on their Yahoo Instant Messaging service, a request, or maybe their mail service as well, a request the company believed was unconstitutional, according to court documents unsealed on Thursday that illuminate how federal officials forced American tech companies to participate in the National Security Agency's controversial PRISM program. The documents, roughly 1,500 pages worth, outline a secret and ultimately unsuccessful legal battle by Yahoo to resist the government's demands. The company's loss required Yahoo to become one of the first to begin providing information to PRISM, a program that gave the NSA extensive access to records of online communications by users of Yahoo and the U.S.-based and other U.S.-based technology firms. So it didn't work out. They tried to fight the power, but ultimately the government, they're going to do what they're going to do.
Well, I was listening to a radio show this morning when I heard the news about this, and I kind of laughed to myself because it seemed almost fruitless for Yahoo to, or I believe I'm saying it wrong. It's Yahoo. but if Yahoo is challenging the government and they're in a federal court, it just seems like the odds are automatically stacked against them, and no matter what argument they choose, it's the government. They're going to make up some law or some loophole that they can benefit from.
Well, and there are some people that say that you should not ever go to a court because courts are inherently, lopsided against you because they're funded by the entity that you're suing, assuming that you're suing the government. So, about a year and a half ago, me and a few others filed a lawsuit against the Keene School District.
Yeah, that's right.
Because of some weird trickery at the deliberative session, which is sort of like a town meeting style New England sort of thing. And of course, we wound up going to the government court, and the government court decided, no. Changing the verb does not modify the context of this petitioned article. Therefore, case dismissed. Same thing with Yahoo. They're going to a government court to say, we think the government's doing something wrong.
Well,
and government courts historically side with the government on being able to expand powers.
Right, but it's a little more complex than that. Like, when the government is setting up an argument saying, well, we need to collect this data because it will protect all of these people. It will provide us with security for these reasons. Why should we not collect this data? Why do you not want us to have it? Are you hiding something? Do you just want to be, that stick in the mud that's not complying? There's a lot more reasons for it than against it, at least in the eyes of attorneys and judges and people who work for the government.
I am glad that they did try to stand up, though, right? Like, they could have just bent over and said, yeah, we'll do whatever you tell us.
And that's another thing, is that a lot of people demonize these messaging sites for giving in to this pressure. But really, they have no option. Either they give in and share this information that they've collected, or they pay these huge fines and eventually go out of business.
Or they just decide to shut down instead of sending the information to the government.
Which is what LeVar Levinson, I think, is what his name was.
Kim.com is...
He did that, too. But Ladar maybe was his name, Levinson. He showed up at the Liberty Forum this year, and actually just as an attendee, he was the guy who was running LavaBit, and that was like a private email service.
Yeah, he was running that with Kim.com.
Oh, I didn't know Kim.com was involved in that.
Yes.
So yeah, they shut down their private email service rather than give a backdoor access to the U.S. government, which was really heroic. I mean, to be able to just throw away years worth of building a business essentially on principle.
Yeah.
That you had, he said he had 400,000 customers worldwide or something like that. A fairly large amount of people were affected by that. And he just shut it down. So let's see. Continuing the story here, the ruling by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court of Review became a key moment in the development of PRISM, helping government officials to convince other Silicon Valley companies that unprecedented data demands had been tested in the courts and found constitutionally sound. Eventually, most major U.S. tech companies, including Google, Facebook, Apple, and AOL, complied. Microsoft had joined earlier before the ruling.
Wait, so they were just like, oh, this seems like it could
Sure
work
thing,
out.
guys.
Yeah.
What can we do to help?
Or it could have been one of those things of where they wanted to not comply. We're going to fine you $250,000 a day. Okay, okay, we'll go ahead and do it.
A version of the court ruling had been released in 2009, but was so heavily redacted that observers were unable to discern which company was involved, what the stakes were, and how the court had wrestled with many of the issues involved. Quote, "We already knew this was a very, very important decision by the FISA Court of Review, but we could only guess at why," said a law professor at American University. PRISM was first revealed by Edward Snowden, the former NSA contractor, last year, prompting intense backlash and a wrenching national debate over allegations of overreach in government surveillance. Documents made it clear the program allowed the NSA to order U.S.-based tech companies to turn over emails and other communications to or from foreign targets without search warrants for each of those targets. Other NSA programs gave even more wide-ranging access to personal information of people worldwide by collecting data directly from fiber optic connections. The real message that I think Edward Snowden has brought out, and this just reinforces, is that you can't trust companies to keep your data safe.
Right.
And it's not their fault, though. I mean, they're under so much political pressure to give it up.
It's true.
And
what can they do?
Well, not just political, but also financial.
Right.
I know if I were running, a $1 billion business and somebody threatened me with almost $2 million per week worth of fines, then it would not take me very long to decide, you know what, I'm just going to, be done with this, and I would shut the business down. If I were in Yahoo's shoes, I would have shut the business down.
Well, they probably could have gotten away with shutting down their messenger service or something like that, or whatever.
Messenger service, groups, email.
Right, but if
they
Yahoo, if every business that provides a messaging service were to shut down under this pressure, then we would really have few to no choices. I mean, I'm sure
I don't know about that. There could still be some companies that would be, let's say, internationally based.
Right, there would be some ones that splinter off, I would think. But
well, and for all
the great thing about having something like Yahoo or Facebook is that everybody uses it.
Well,
for all of the bad things that Google has done, one thing that they do that I praise them on is any email that is sent that stays within the Gmail network is encrypted the entire way through.
Yeah, but you still can't trust them. I mean, because
I'm not saying I trust them.
Just because Google says, we've got encrypted email now, doesn't mean that the FBI or NSA or whatever doesn't have a tap right in the line before the encryption starts that they can just jack all your emails
Well,
out.
there are some people that make the claim that, there's some little thing within the computer that as soon as you hit a keystroke, it goes straight to the NSA database before you ever hit send. So, some people are going to say, nothing you do anywhere ever is safe.
Yeah, and also you get news like about TrueCrypt, which was an encryption protocol that the authors abandoned, and it was this really weird story, and I don't know if anybody's ever done any further checking on that. We'll find out more coming up here in moments. Free Talk Live. What a surprise! The government courts have ruled that the government should be able to take all kinds of information from whatever private companies that are online doing services for you, like Yahoo, Google, Microsoft. Of course, Microsoft apparently was more than happy to jump through the hoops in advance, but the court ruled that, yeah, we can just take whatever we want from you, essentially. I mean, I'm going to give you more details on this here in a moment, but there's been big news that hit recently about Yahoo being threatened with $250,000 a day fines if they failed to comply with a broad demand to just hand over user communications. Just give it over. We want to look at all of it. And maybe they weren't asking for all of it. Maybe it was a not so broad demand, but a semi-broad. I don't know what the hell they were asking for. They can ask for anything they want to, and they'll get it these days. That's what this court has ruled. And if you don't comply as a corporation, they will fine you and then put you out of business.
It's not even these days. This happened like, what?
This is 2008.
Six or
true.
7 years ago?
Good point. Yeah, it has been 6 years since 2008. So Yahoo, the story, by the way, is coming from WashingtonPost.com, threatened with $250,000 a day fines all the way back in 2008. They took it to court and subsequently lost in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court of Review. Now, the FISA court, as they have been called in the past,
I call it FISA.
is not a particularly freedom-friendly court. So,
No.
I don't know why if anybody really expected them to prevail in this situation, but at least they gave it a shot. I'll give them credit for that. So Yahoo endured heavy criticism after the Washington Post and Britain's Guardian newspaper used Snowden's documents to reveal the existence of PRISM last year, which is a NSA spying program. It was legally bound from revealing its efforts in attempting to resist government pressure. The New York Times first reported Yahoo's role in the case in June of 2013, a week after the initial PRISM revelations. Both the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court of Review, an appellate court, ordered declassification of the case last year amid a broad effort to make public the legal reasoning behind NSA programs that had stirred national and international anger. So we have heard about these stories before where the feds will come in, they'll talk to an individual or a company, and they'll say, look, we need you to do X for us, and you can't tell anybody about it. You can't tell anybody we've even come to talk to you.
Yeah, that's part of the warrant procedures under the USA Patriot Act.
That's part of the double standard that they always have where, you can't have any privacy, but they need all of the privacy.
I heard Judge Napolitano several years ago talk about a librarian that was handed one of these warrants from some FBI guy, and she called over to the other librarian and said, "Do you know anything about this?" And was arrested on the spot for violating a provision of the warrant that she could not tell another person about the warrant.
It's so insane. Now, haven't they come up with some sort of program for websites where the website will display a message that says something like, we have not been contacted by the FBI or the FISA court or whatever, NSA, which is the federal government, essentially, by any government agency. We have not been contacted by some government agency to reveal our files. And then the idea is if that message gets removed from the site, that is essentially the heads up that they have been contacted, because they can't say that they've been contacted. They cannot reveal the information of the fact that the national security letter, as they've been called in the past,
but if they take that down, isn't that kind of like giving the confirmation that they were contacted?
Well, that's exactly what it is, but it's not them saying anything.
Well,
they're not speaking anything. It's just been removed. The information that they haven't been contacted has been removed from the site. I forget what that's called. There's some name for that.
I would love to see, and let me rephrase that. If that happens to a company to where they have this notice up and then they wind up getting, served and then they remove the notice, after that point, I would love to see the court proceeding to find out whether or not they are then found guilty of violating the provisions of the warrant, because in a roundabout way, they have notified people that they got one of these things.
Right, but they could have just taken it down for some random reason.
That's true.
I guess they could use that as a defense. The lack of a negative is not the same as having a positive
That's just
statement.
They haven't spoken, right? They haven't spoken. The information's just been removed, and they have not said specifically what's actually happened.
Right, but Ian, you've dealt with courts and legal stuff enough to where you know that they're going to do and say and rule however they want to. Yeah. And then, you don't like the one court's ruling? Well, pay a bunch of money and take it to another court.
Judge William C. Bryson, presiding judge of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court of Review, ordered the documents from the legal battle unsealed on Thursday. Documents from the case in the lower court have not been released. Yahoo hailed the decision in a Tumblr post Thursday afternoon, saying, quote, "The released documents underscore how we had to fight every step of the way to challenge the U.S. government's surveillance efforts," according to their company's general counsel. But they couldn't say a word about it until literally Thursday. And so it made it look bad for them because, as was pointed out, they were enduring criticism about being involved with the PRISM program, when in point it was as though they were just going along to get along, when in point of fact they were fighting the entire way to try to prevent this from happening. So kudos to Yahoo. Unfortunately, they lost, and your information is at risk. So you have to take certain steps in order to protect yourself. How do you protect yourself online? We've been talking about the ultimate failure of Yahoo to defend your privacy. They tried, and I don't know how much it cost them to try, because, you know, they got their attorneys and they worked on this, and it went over a period of years. They couldn't talk about it until literally just yesterday, apparently. And so they put out the word to let folks know they had attempted to stand up for folks' privacy, but your privacy if you're a Yahoo user. But ultimately, the federal government prevailed in their own courts, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone out there that the courts will rule in favor of the government most of the time. Every now and then a court will make a right decision, just so often enough to where you'll think, oh, the system still works. But most of the time, they're not making the right decision at all.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.